Welcome back, everyone! Today we'll be adding another page to our bestiary as we focus on one of the most broad classifications that we have. Usually when we're discussing different kinds of creatures or monsters, I'm typically addressing the family, genus, or species that the monster type falls into. But this classification could be anything, and today we'll discuss why that is. So my friends, let us come together on this day so that we might understand the spoken. The spoken are a unique type even when compared to massive monsters like the behemoth, because unlike all other creature types, the spoken aren't defined by physiology or biology. They're defined by cognitive development. That makes this category unique as it's a blanket term used to describe everything that falls under it. So, what is a spoken, and what makes them so special? Spoken is a classification assigned to any creature that has gained enough intelligence to not only create its own independent language, but also that this language is complicated enough to be interpreted by another spoken belonging to a different genus. In simple terms, if the creature in question is smart enough to create a language and that language can be understood by other creatures on some level, then that entity is technically classified as a spoken. As you can already guess, this already covers dozens of unique races scattered across the world of Eorzea. From the Hyr to the Eorzea, the Sahagin to the Eorzea. If it has a language that can be understood or translated, then they are spoken. Of course, this also means that you and I are both members of this category as well. Many may wonder that if the spoken are such a broad term, why does it exist in the first place? In a manner of speaking, this classification exists to separate men from monsters. Allow me to explain. When fighting creatures like a Corel, they're not so much thinking about their actions, they're acting on animalistic instincts and impulses. When they become hungry, they hunt. It's as simple as that. While the act of a Corel hunting someone or something may be violent by definition, it's not malicious. The monster is hunting to survive, or because it feels threatened. Rarely, if at all, does their intent go any further than that. However, the actions of a spoken are completely different. To possess the intelligence to create a language asserts a great many things about the creature in question. But the most important part is that it now distinguishes and understands that there are perspectives beyond its own. No longer is the entity operating on just basic instincts. It can think, reflect, and understand the meaning behind its behavior, at least on some level. This brings us to the crux of what makes a spoken different from other creatures: intent. If a Corel attacks and kills someone, then people will simply attribute that it's a beast behaving like a beast. But if a member of the spoken category attacks and kills another spoken without just cause, then it's technically murder. In a world filled with so many varieties of life, the bar for higher intelligence had to be placed somewhere, and language development happened to be where scholars placed it. However, that doesn't mean that creatures that aren't spoken are automatically dumb animals. In fact, I'd argue that there are some chocobos that are smarter than most people. It simply helps to know what creatures are and aren't thinking on a higher level. But what you may not know is that there are monsters in this classification that you share a space with. Creatures that you might not have understood are closer to you than you may have thought. Let's begin by addressing one such entity: the Cyclops. Indeed, the Cyclops do fall under the spoken category. They're certainly lower on the intellect scale than most spoken, but they are indeed capable of communication and understanding. Some beast tribes have used this to their advantage, enslaving the Cyclops to make use of their brute strength as well as their capacity for comprehending battle tactics. But on the flip side, some Cyclops have been reasoned with and made to peacefully cooperate with other races. This is more rare than the prior example, but it does happen. Moving on, an example of a creature that's even lower on the spoken chart would be that of the Opkin. The Opkin indeed have their own language that we've managed to decipher, but it's mostly a collection of grunts, croaks, and gurgles. There was a research team that attempted to meet with and teach the Eorzean tongue to a group of Opkin, but this ended in failure as they realized that the creature's vocal cords haven't progressed far enough to make complex sounds. However, as a member of the spoken category, it's possible that maybe one day, the Opkin may become yet another beast tribe with their own culture and beliefs. Next, we move on to a species that was almost hunted to extinction: sirens. Indeed, the sirens know what havoc they're causing, and they don't care. For centuries, there have been stories of various sirens using their magical melodies to hypnotize and entrance their victims, placing them into a stupor so that the siren might feast upon their living aether. Despite some people trying to find peace with them, the sirens never show any sign of regret or remorse for their actions, as if drunk off of the essence of their victims. This caused one man to hunt them to near extinction within Eorzea. That man was none other than Mistbeard, the Pirate King. The oceans around Eorzea had become a feasting grounds for the sirens, and Mistbeard finally had enough with their ravenous appetite. He created countermeasures to combat the sirens' magic and killed them one after the other, freeing the ocean to open trade and easier piracy. The sirens are living proof that just because a creature is possessed of higher intellect does not automatically mean they can be reasoned with. Though, as we move on, you'll find that some members of the spoken category are people that have been changed on an ethereal level into another species entirely. This includes, but isn't limited to, the Tomberries and the Ishgardians turned Dragonkin. Despite their drastically different appearance, their minds are mostly intact or the same as they were before. This makes their transformation different from that of turning into something like a void scent, whereas that etheric disturbance is so profound that you lose your body as well as your mind. The Tomberries were normal people belonging to the city-state of Nim, but were steadily turned into the monsters they're seen as by a void scent's curse. Meanwhile, the half-dragons of Ishgard are a more complicated story. Amongst the Ishgardian citizenry, there are men and women that are direct descendants of the original Knights 12 that partook of Ratatoskir's power after betraying her. While the Dragon's might did indeed give them greater power than they ever had before, this caused a strange ethereal imbalance that has persisted throughout the generations. While not all people of Ishgard are directly related to one of the Knights 12, there's enough of them to cause an interesting interaction with dragon's blood. If one of these descendants drinks of a dragon's blood, then the aether that makes up their biology is sent into a frenzy, forcing their bodies to twist and transform into a state that is caught between man and dragon. The 3 recorded forms that these people have changed into are classified as the Avis, Sarikta, and Dyersar. Despite their changes in appearance, they're still considered spoken, as they can still speak fluently and usually retain the knowledge of their previous form. However, such a drastic transformation has proven to be too much for some individuals, causing them to go mad as such a traumatic change is too much for them to bear. But those that have retained their personality are able to be reasoned with and placated under the right circumstances. Given that they retain their higher intellect, it is possible to reintroduce them into the social circles they were once a part of. The last member of the spoken category we'll address today belong to the groups of people that have been transformed by a primal's influence. As most people are aware, primal tempering causes an individual to steadily lose their mind and devote their existence to the primal in question. However, further exposure to the primal's etheric power can result in their body changing into something different along with their mind. For example, The Drowned is the name given to the people that are so drastically altered by Leviathan's aether that they're technically no longer the species they were previously. And yet, despite this, many Drowned retain their ability to communicate, and thus they maintain their status as a member of the Spoken. However, they've been altered by aether so much that attempting to reason with them would be a fool's errand. Once someone is altered by a primal's aether on a physical level, it's too late for them, and they belong to that primal. And that will bring us to the end of today's lesson. As you can see, the Spoken cover a much broader collection of creatures than any other classification. As a member of the Spoken, you stand in the same domain as many monsters and malicious entities. This should serve to remind everyone that the only real differences between tribal camps and city-states is progress. Judge not your fellow Spoken by their appearance or origins. Instead, mark them by their choices and actions. What they do with their intellect and power will tell you everything you need to know about them. Take this knowledge to heart. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Till then, stay safe, my friends. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Big shout out to my patrons, Rovakis, Monsolo97, Potato, Runatir, The Yellow Couch, Papaya Cyan, Sage Mouse, Volvala Soma, and EB the GT. If you want to see more lore content in the future, share this with your friends. My dream is to share as much as I find with as many people as possible. And if you do end up helping me, thank you so much in advance. And have a wonderful day.